Heart of the Order, episode 18, guys. Big news. Big news. The news we've all been waiting for. Baseball is back.
1 month from today.
1 month from today. Baseball will be back. They're set to start on July 23rd, July 24th. Spring training, players report to spring training July 1st. This news broke last night. We kind of had an idea that it was coming earlier in the week. They just had to refine the finer details. Guys, I don't know what episode we started at about contract negotiation talks, about baseball being played this year. Like, it had to have been at least episode 5, maybe 6, because we did all the division breakdowns and things like that. How excited are we? Baseball is fucking back, guys. Baseball is back. Dre, I know you got something.
You hear it? The realest sport, baby. Get hype. You kidding me? Oh, let's go!
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I can't hear
You don't hear it?
No, I don't hear it.
You don't hear it?
Does it take me up to the ball game?
Oh, man, it's Hulk Hogan's theme song.
I heard it in the pre-production, but I can't hear it now.
That sucks. Maybe it's because it's just a song. It doesn't matter. I'm still hype. Who cares? We don't need music. We know what this is about. We've been waiting for this. Talking about that bullshit, those back and forth negotiations for weeks. Finally, we are back, and it feels so good. Cheers, fellas.
He's got the beer ready and everything. Why didn't I think of it? Why didn't I think of it?
We are celebrating tonight. That's why I thought about it.
I mean, I don't like this week. I don't really have to ask you guys how you're feeling because, I can only imagine how you guys are
I can't
feeling.
believe you didn't hear the music. That sucks.
Huh?
That was the perfect song.
Right?
I can't believe you didn't hear the music.
I'm sorry, Dre. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Maybe the listeners are gonna hear it. Who knows?
Maybe you should be more technological.
Edit it over.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'll do. I'll edit it over. I mean, guys, we've been waiting for this for so long. But I before we dive into all the details of this agreement, I do want to bring up one thing. I mean, obviously, as baseball fans, we're excited. We're excited that the sport is back. We're excited that it will be played this year. We're excited there's going to be a World Series, possibly, maybe, depending on COVID. I mean, we're a month away from actual competitive baseball being played by Major League Baseball players. But there was one thing I saw going around Twitter today that I just want to get your guys' opinion on. After everything that went on with the contract negotiations, the owners, the Players Association going back and forth, the shit that was basically thrown in our face for 3 or 4 months when there should have been baseball going on, should we really be excited about this, or should we be pissed at the owners, at the Players Association, that this isn't happening sooner, that this didn't happen sooner?
I mean, I feel like from my perspective, when I first heard that baseball was back, and I was sort of more like, well, when you're gone on vacation for a while,
Yeah.
you come home and your dog or cat, what have you, is first a little bit standoffish.
Yeah.
And it maybe takes them about an hour or two to warm up to you and give you attention again. And for good reason. You were just gone for a week.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I felt at first.
Okay.
When I was just sort of well, you're looking at well, hey, it's going to be this game season is going to be that.
Yeah.
But then I had my 30 minutes of that, and then I just got excited to watch baseball again because, it's a freak, or pandemic's a poor way to say freak, but it's this rare thing that's happening, and baseball is going to be back. It's going to be I'm not sure what the exact dates of the other sports are, but hey, we're going to get baseball to watch.
It's
I'm ecstatic.
Baseball is going to be back before NBA. Baseball is going to beat NBA back.
Yes.
That's
And that's
for everything that's gone on. Baseball is somehow going to be basketball back, which is wild to me.
well, I'll say this. Truth be honest, I never even thought about that. That's how excited I was that baseball's back.
Yeah.
I didn't even think like, damn, they missed out on a big opportunity. This should have happened sooner.
Mhm.
I was so excited they finally came to a deal. I guess because weeks we've been talking about, is there going to be baseball? Yes, no. You try to stay optimistic. You try to, you try to keep a positive face on it, try to keep a spin on these negotiations. And I tried so hard, but got to the point where last week where I was like, we're literally not going to have baseball, and this sucks. Like, and I'd never even thought about the fact that when it came back that, oh, wow, now that it's here, like, did they miss out on an opportunity to have it? I mean, of course they did, but at least they're having it, Like, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Like, 60 games in 66 days, I could never even dreamed of that. I honestly got to the point where I didn't think it was going to happen. So I'm hyped. I'm excited. I'm glad it's done. Finally, some type of resolution.
That's wild. I mean, beginning on July 23rd, we're going to have baseball for 66 straight days.
60. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
There's not going to be like a day where there's no baseball because, I mean,
Right.
obviously the off days for each team are going to be counted and things like that. So 66 days of straight baseball leading to, I think it was September 27th, I think, is the last day of the regular season. So 66 days straight baseball. Obviously, with everything going on, the season isn't going to look like a normal baseball season. I mean, it's shortened to 60 games. So they're going to play 60 games over 66 days. I've said that multiple times, a couple different things. We'll get into each one. But, I mean, let's just start with the 60 games in 66 days. I mean, that's a lot of baseball, guys. That's a lot of baseball. What do we think how do teams have to handle this differently? I mean, they're used to playing so many games in a year, 162 games. But 60 games in 66 days, that's a lot of baseball. Do teams have to approach this differently? How do we think this will affect roster sizes, roster players, pitchers, things like that? I mean, break it down a little bit here.
So we got right now, from what we know that there's going to be 30 players on a roster as opposed to 26.
For the first
It used to be 20. Yeah, for the first 2 weeks. And it used to be 25. And then this year, before the pandemic, they're like, oh, no, let's go to 26.
Yeah.
Now there's going to be 30 in the first couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I find that really good because it allows you to sort of stock up in pitchers.
Yep.
And another thing that really helps is the universal DH, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot here today. But the DH really helps because of the fact that you don't have to worry about depleting your bench for things like a pinch hitter, depleting your bullpen, for certain situations. Like, it's going to be easy for these it's going to be easier for these managers to sort of manage the distance within the bench and then manage the game at the same time. I say that because you're not going to have a lot of players in the dugout. You're not going to have a lot of positional players. You're going to have maybe 4 bench guys. Talking about a catcher, utility man, an outfielder, and an infielder. It's full time. And then everything out, lefty, righty, whatever it is. You might have an emergency catcher, so you might have 5. A lot of those guys are going to be in the pen. A lot of those guys don't need to be in the pen all game. So, with the 30 guys in the first couple of weeks, you're probably going to see a lot of pitchers. And it's going to be like that because of the fact that, not everybody's going to be in game shape. Like, starters might not go 6-7 innings. They might go 4. So it changes strategies a little bit when you think about that. You see an opener, and that's a thing that's kind of been experimented with before with the Rays. Pirates tried it a couple times. Like, I kind of like the fact that right now with the sprint, the sprint as opposed to the marathon, that like you have to sort of get ready and you have to sort of manage on the run. And taking the strategy of the double switches, pinch hitters, things like that. Still going to be tough for these managers because you're talking about sprint. You don't have time to get ready. Every game matters now. That's pretty awesome. So I'm very excited to see that part of it.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things too will be interesting to follow. Like the baseball typically is, it's the teams that are the contenders, and then there's those middle pack of teams, or the teams that are the super contenders, middle pack, and the teams that definitely are going to compete. Yeah, then that sort of narrows and balances the playing field. But then after like 25 games, the teams that are out are going to be like pretty aware that they're out. So like it'll be interesting to see like what their approach to this funky season now becomes, especially like preserving arms for like future years. So that's like one thing that I thought of, but then it's just especially heavy on like coming out of the gate. Like one thing that I thought, like I'm sure we'll talk a bunch about the rules in place, but like one thing that like really caught my eye was the schedule. So with the East playing, you play within your division, and then you play your counter league, your interleague same geographic division. So like for teams like the Twins and the Indians, that's great. For teams like the Phillies, the Mets, the Rays, the Red Sox, like that's
rough.
not so much.
Yeah,
So it's like it's crazy when you think about like in those 60 games. Like I feel like I think I saw the Twins play, let me do the math, 10, 4, 24. What's 24 divided by 60? 40%. The Twins played 40% of their games against either the Pirates, the Royals, or the Tigers. That's insane.
It's all wins right there.
I would hate to be the Twins when they got to play the Pirates in the spring.
Eric Shelton, baby, he knows.
They're a team with nothing to lose, baby. And now that we're back, we got a chance. They said we were gonna lose 100 games this year, and guess what? It ain't happened.
We're not
Joke's
even
on
gonna
y'all,
lose 61.
morons. Joke's on you. We ain't losing 100 games. I believed it before. I'm saying it now. Idiots.
Trey, we've talked about this before. You get your hopes up every year, and then the Pirates kill your hopes.
Can't lose 100 games if you don't play 100. Boom, mic drop. Dump that.
If you told me in February that the Pirates would lose less than 60 games, that would be wonderful.
I didn't believe it either.
I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting because, I mean, I feel like you have teams that definitely have, an obvious advantage. I mean, you look at teams like the Yankees. They're playing in the AL East. 40 of their games are going to be against the Red Sox, the Rays, the Orioles. Am I missing anyone from that division?
The Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays. And then, I mean, you have the Dodgers who are going against the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the Padres. I can't think tonight. I can't think of these standings. But I feel like those two teams are like definitely, heavily favored because of just the type of competition they have to go against. Normally, it's kind of spread out a little more every year.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, it's definitely, obviously with everything going on, it's a little bit different.
Think about it like this, okay?
Yeah.
Look at each division. If we were to pick which division would be the strongest, top to bottom, just thinking off the top, without a shadow of a doubt, I would pick the NL Central.
Yeah.
And the weakest division, without a shadow of a doubt, I would probably pick as the AL Central.
Yeah.
So the NL Central, to me, is wide open. Whoever can win the games in the AL Central, I think, is how you win. As far as the East and the West goes, that's where a lot of the good baseball teams are. You have the Yankees and you have the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Then you have the teams that can compete. You have the Rays, you have the Astros. I'm probably crossing divisions here, but you have the Phillies, and you have the Braves, you have the defending champs, the Nats. Those two guys, those are the divisions I would not want to be in, honestly, today. Mainly because it's not a walk in the park across divisions. There's no cakewalks. There's like the Marlins.
I wouldn't say cross division, but I would say the Yankees are heavily favored to dominate the play in the AL East, and the Dodgers are heavily favored to dominate play in the NL West. But when you cross, I think that's when it gets a little hazy for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean, because the NL East is pretty strong, and the AL West is pretty strong as well with the Astros there.
Yeah, and you could say there's an advantage to the AL as opposed to the NL because they already have a DH.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The only team I can think of right now in the NL that's going to benefit the most from this DH is the Dodgers, and that's because they have Jock Peterson still.
Yeah. Mhm.
They can throw him in there. He'd be perfectly
Yeah.
fine. And I'm pretty sure that they have other guys that they can throw in there too.
Mhm.
Josh
Yeah.
Peterson is a bench piece.
Yeah.
And about divisions, I saw something on Fangraphs today. Like they released like the incredibly early Zips
Projections.
projections. That's the word. I was like progressions, projections.
I'm
And
one beer
the
deep, and I can still think about it. Here we go, baby.
NL
Baseball's back.
or the NL Central, it was the Pirates, and then all the other teams, and all the other teams were divided by one game.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Projections. So it's just going to be insane. Like it's going to take September baseball and really like high intensity,
It's like put it on steroids, pretty much. Like
Yeah.
baseball is going to be on steroids.
Big meaningful games, and like the one thing is, so there's no expanded playoff.
Yeah.
So it's the same amount of teams.
Mhm.
So then you're just going to get these certain wild card races, and I think it's just going to be really fun to watch, even if like hypothetically your team may not be competing, because then it's just the last 2 weeks of the season. How many teams are within that margin?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be great.
Are there?
So,
go ahead, Dre.
no, you go ahead. My question's related, but I do have a question.
Well, go ahead then.
Okay, I'll just bring it up. Okay.
If it's related, go ahead.
It is. So we talk about these good teams. Talk about the Yankees, and we talk about the Dodgers, the Astros, teams like that. What do you do?
I think you're gonna steal my thunder.
I told you to go.
I think I was
What
gonna
do you-
ask the same question.
What do you do if you're a team like the Orioles and right out of the gate, what do you do? Do you compete? Do you tank? Like, because you have 66 games and you have a trade deadline. So you don't really have enough time to tank, right? Like, how do you handle this season if you're a team like that?
I mean, how do you not come out of the gate and play your hardest, like out of the gate? Like I would think, like
To the end of July? 7 days?
no, I mean, you have a full month and a half to do something. So like if you think about it, like so July 24th, 23rd to the middle of March, basically like a full month. If you think you're not in contention by the end of that first month, which is probably like, pretty close to the trade deadline, I would start making moves. But like I feel like you're gonna have a pretty good idea pretty early how well you're gonna do, because you're gonna be playing so many games against the same opponents.
And I think, I mean, when we talk about how the first month goes, we could also say the first half of the season, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like for like a bunch of cases, like teams are probably like, all right, let's just see how these first 2 weeks happen. If like the Orioles come out and in the first like 15 games, they're like 9-6, 10-5, they'd be like, okay, let's see how the next 2 weeks happen. And then as soon as they're like out, like as soon as they're like starting to like the clips, like, all right, punt, we're done.
Yeah.
I'd be mad if I was in contention, all of a sudden just punt.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm saying the Pirates are going to do that.
I'm saying that they're going to take it in 2 week checkpoints.
Yeah.
Or even shorter.
I think that's
like if you go 1-6 in a week and you're already not in a great position, you're like, well, that's it.
Fuck it. Bye.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense. But, part of me is like, if that 1-6 week is the beginning of August after you just went 6-1, it's like, okay, you're a 500 team. Like, you had a hot streak and then you had a bad streak, but you have 3 weeks until a deadline. So, like, what do you do? Like, and part of me, again, I'm like, well, you're talking about the Baltimore Orioles here. Are they really going to compete? But at the same time, you're talking about the Baltimore Orioles. Are they really going to compete in a 162-game season as opposed to a 60-game season?
Well, I mean, I think you're going to see the teams that historically don't or lately haven't had that type of success. Like, I don't think you're going to see them kind of try to ride out like a hot streak, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like a lot of teams are going to kind of act like the Pirates did in a way at the trade deadline last year, where they had a great first half of the season, but they didn't really do much at the trade deadline, and it kind of showed in the second half of the season when they kind of hit
they lost like 17 straight games going into the deadline, so they kind of like played themselves out of it.
True.
But At the All-Star break, they were in the wild card contention.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but after that, it went terribly
Oh, yeah.
south.
Yeah. And but like that, I mean, that was kind of leading into the question I had was like, you know, throughout these long seasons, 160 games, you see teams go on like hot streaks throughout the year. In a shortened 60-game season, I mean, how many of these teams are going to go on hot streaks and it's literally just going to carry them to the playoffs? Like, who's the most likely team that you would never expect to make the playoffs that could make the playoffs this year because it's a shortened season and it's literally like a sprint rather than a marathon?
If I was going to pick a team now, I'm not going to lie. I really want to pick the White Sox.
Yeah.
I think that could be the team. They're young. They're hungry. You know, a lot of these guys, they're ready for – I feel like they're ready for a type of sprint. Like, they don't need to sort of, you know, wait until May, June to get going. Like, they can come out the gate hot, build that confidence up sky high, and in 60 games, they could be top of the division, and they're riding that wave all the way to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because usually around 60 games, if a team like that's hot, you're like, boy, you got a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Talking 60 games is the end of the line, though. So, like, you know, you don't got 100 more games, so it's not like, okay, you're talking about the dog days of summer. You're talking about the fall classic at that point at 60 games. So I think that's a team right out of the gate, at least first thought. Don't let them get hot. They're young. They get hot. They're confident. Good luck knocking that.
Yeah, mine, because I'm trying to think of like who we made a lot of different playoff predictions.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
We got more coming.
Yeah, and I think I had this team making the playoffs back when we were pre-COVID, but I feel like the Angels, you have the best player in the face of the earth who's had hot streaks last 60 games. Yeah. And so, like, just himself, but then also, like, being focused on the labor dispute side, you forget that they got Anthony Rendon this year.
Yep.
Tony's coming.
Yep.
And it's just, like, the stuff that you forget about. You're like, holy cow, that team's pretty loaded. And them going west-west,
yep.
I mean, you have –
takes away those East Coast trips.
Yeah, you have Seattle, you have Texas, you have San Francisco, and Colorado. Like, those are teams that you could you're playing 20 against in your own division that are against pretty weak teams, and you're having 8 of your other games that are pretty doable. So it's not like they're going into this unsurmountable task. And I feel like especially them similarly, like they haven't had any playoff experience. I guess it would just at that point be a matter of pitching, which in their benefit, I feel like a truncated season helps weaker pitching staffs.
Yeah, because it's
pitching wounds of pitching show deeper the longer the season is.
Yeah, I think the Padres could be a team to watch as well. I mean, with a shortened season, the young squad, young pitching staff. You know, you got Manny Machado there. You got Fernando Tatis Jr. there. Just a young team, a lot of potential. You know, I think they could be an interesting team to watch out of the West, maybe sneak in as a wild card team. I mean, they're definitely – I don't think they're going to win the West, but, like, I think they're a team that could, you know, maybe potentially catch fire throughout the course of the 60 games and somehow find themselves in a wild card spot come the playoffs. It's definitely going to be interesting, though. Team-wise is going to be very interesting. Another question I wanted to ask you guys is, you know, what type of stat lines are we going to see in this 60-game spread? I mean, there was something – like, how many 400 average hitters do you think we see in this 60-game spread?
7.
A good amount. I'm curious of
you said that quick. Like you said that quick, Drake.
I did. There's some good hitters out there. Mike Trout, I feel like, is going to hit 500.
You think Mike Trout's going to hit 500?
I don't know. He might even break the hit streak, man. You got 60 games of sprint. If anyone's built for it, it's the greatest player of our generation.
Isn't the hit streak like 63 games?
No, it's 56.
56.
Yeah, which is funny. If you go if you don't get a hit in the first 4 games, you ain't breaking that streak.
Yeah.
I think a stat line that'll be interesting is if how many pitchers will, like bullpen guys, will just have 0 ERAs. Yeah. Like if you're maybe like a closer or if you're just like a setup guy, like how many appearances is that disaggregated down to 60 games. Like, are they pitching like 30 times, 25 times? We
Ooh,
could have some guys coming out with 0 ERAs.
Brooksy, you just made me think of something.
They wouldn't be pitching every night. You would think they wouldn't be coming into every single game every night.
So they're only going to pitch like half.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see is how many closers end up with 20-plus saves and how many of them are on the same team. Because some team is going to get hot, but every closer can't pitch every day. So who's going to be your closer in waiting? And that's what I was talking about earlier.
Keone Kela, because you get him at the trade deadline.
Or whoever the Twins have, because they had 3 closers last year. They had a closer committee.
Yeah.
And Rogers, I think it was Clippard and then someone else. I don't know. Clippard might be wrong. And I don't even think he's there anymore. But
he's on the Nationals.
It might not be Clippard. I know Rogers. It might be Rogers and some Rogers. I can't remember Rogers, but Trevor May, I think, is another guy. But yeah, you definitely made me think of that. Another thing is, and I had a lot of fun with this one, is how many players do you think just go for balls to the wall and just try to steal a base every game?
Oh, a lot.
Because, like,
I feel like a lot of teams are going to be playing a really aggressive type of style baseball this year with the shortened season. I think there's going to be a lot of base stealing.
There's so much potential for so much excitement and so much risk because they're already taking risk with their health. You know, pun. I'm not trying to be punny there, but that's a pun. Bottom line is that on the field, like, you got to risk it because you don't have 162 games. So, like, when you get on base, how often do you steal?
Yeah.
Guy like Jared Dyson. I was joking off a group of friends earlier this week. He might steal 50 bags. They're like, oh, there's only 60 games. He still might steal 50 bags. I don't know. Like, I mean, you got to get on base, but, like, there's guys like that out there that might just go for broke and just steal. There's a lot of guys out there that have the green light. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's going to be interesting to see that. Just small things like that. And another thing, what starter leads the league in wins, and what's the number? Because you're talking about maybe pitchers making 13, 14 starts. They go 14-0. I don't know.
I would assume the leading wins pitcher has between 10 and 15 wins.
Yeah, so they would have to have 12 starts.
Yeah.
Total. If it's like actually probably pitchers will probably only have 11 starts because if you're playing every day, I'm sure they'll have.
Well, every 5 days would be 12.
Yeah, but then I'm thinking that they may not have people go every 5, and maybe like every few cycles through, they'll just have a Clay Holmes start a game and just sort of like give extra breathing room down the line.
See, I got a little bit of opposite thinking. I'm thinking a team like the Mets, a team like the Yankees is going to throw out a Garrett Cole, Jake DeGrom every 4 days. Guys pitch on basically 3 days rest. So like they go maybe 5-6 innings pending pitch count.
All
game,
about pitch count.
And then 3 days later they go again and go another 5 innings because again you need wins. You need to stack them up any way you can. So you pay those guys big money. That's what you're thinking. Jake DeGrom, 2-time Cy Young winner. Big money.
I'll just use this as a chance to advertise for myself to teams. I am, in my baseball career, was quite the bunter, which in the extra innings with a guy on second, put me in, I'll pinch hit. I won't be able to see the ball coming in, but maybe I'll just dink it down there. That's like, if with the extra inning rules, not to like transition too quickly, but with having a guy on second, like that's unreal. Like I saw a statistic of that was used in the minor leagues, and the percent of games before this rule being implemented that ended after the first extra inning was like 25. And with this system being implemented, then it was 75. So that's just like insane. So like from a strategic perspective, that'll be really interesting to see how teams approach that extra innings rule, because I know like nowadays like bunting is just given a free out and bunting's so taboo. But if you think about it, it's like, holy cow, if you have a guy on second, and it's the extra innings, especially if you're in the bottom of the inning and you just need to score 1 run to win. Like, I just think that's going to be a very interesting twist in it. That will be interesting to follow.
100%. It's gonna be an interesting season. I mean, with these interesting rules, we kind of touched on both of them already. Since you just touched on it, Brooksy, let's just get right into it. One of the new rules is that, you know, if you reach extra innings, runner on second base, no outs. I mean, they've been tossing this idea around for a while. I mean, what do you guys think of it aside from the strategy? What do you think of the rule of starting someone on second base with extra innings?
I don't like it, but I understand it. I think it's necessary. Again, 60 games, 60 days. It's tough. You know, and there's not a lot of off days. They're trying to avoid having guys go longer periods of time because you're trying to be health conscious.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the big things about it. You know, baseball coming back right now they're still today as we record trying to figure out how they're going to keep players safe. I think one of the biggest things is, you know, trying to avoid 18-game marathons.
Yeah.
Those guys, you know, a game could end at like 2 a.m. and they're back up at 5 or 6, you know, back to the workouts. They got a day game the next day. And, like, you know, yeah, you could bench them, but, like, they got to play the game after that because most of the time that happens on a Saturday to Sunday, they might have the off day Monday. They don't have that luxury right now. And, you know, you want to try and avoid all kinds of marathons, especially in these trying times. So I get it, but I don't like it. It's not baseball to me, but what's conventional about this season anyways, you know? Again, it's just one of the things I was touching on when I first started after I went crazy. The strategy behind that is, what are you going to do when Billy Hamilton's on second base? You know, how do you police that? How do you make sure? Because, like Brooksy said, you lay it on a bunt, you got a guy at third, sack fly, wins the game. At that point, you kind of want to sacrifice an out. You're not moving a guy to second from first to second. You're talking about second to third, where a ball to the outfield just brings him in. So I get it, but I don't like it. But I'm ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm similar. Like, at first, it was like, well, I'd rather have what we're having now than ties.
Right. Or
and like, there's I saw something like around 10. At first, I thought it was really high, so I didn't fact check myself. But I saw 10%, around 10% of games go to extra innings. So then I was sort of thinking, I was like, dang, if ties were a thing, then that's just like a whole other different wrench in the system. And I totally get like the logistics for it, from like a 2-pronged health, one for COVID, one for like players without rest. So I get why it needs to happen. And I'll try to take the positive from it. There'll be some weird stuff going on, but it's not the case in the playoffs.
I just had a brain blast.
What?
All right, you guys ready for this?
Sure.
About to blow your mind. Where baseball messed up, and hopefully they do this for the future. So you do have extra innings. You have normal extra innings. 1 extra inning to try and win the game. If you don't win, you have pitchers, catchers, and your lineup. You start from top to bottom. You have a swing off. All 9 batters hit. Whoever puts one over the fence, they have to be strikes.
Like,
or you just
home runs?
Yeah. A swing off for the win. Like a shootout in hockey. That'd be dope.
That's a good idea. My idea was that I briefly had just now was, but it would be a disaster. Each inning, you remove a fielder and just see what happens. But a swing off, that would be much more exciting.
That would be interesting.
A swing off would be so awesome.
Is it like a batting practice swing off?
See,
like you actually?
I feel like a batting practice swing off is kind of cheating because, like, if you have them as power hitters, you're gonna win. But, like, at the same time, like, you're in a major league, somebody's gonna be susceptible to hitting a home run. You stack the lineup any way you want at that point.
Yeah.
You're not going out in the field; you're just swinging.
So you get like what, 3 swings or something?
Every batter gets, every batter sort of kind of gets on the bat.
Okay.
What about like elementary? At least what my elementary school did, elementary kickball rules, where it's not 3 outs, everybody gets an at-bat. And you see how many runs you can score.
I like that.
With everybody getting an at-bat. So it could just be like 9 people.
So you get one at bat, like you get
go through the whole time, and if they get 6 runs, and the other team gets whatever, but it's just 9.
Yeah.
Bro, that's dope.
That'd be interesting.
That's kind of like my idea with your idea, but much better because home runs are a lot harder.
They get combined. I like it. I
I like that so much better.
No outs. But
No outs.
you have the field.
9 batters.
I guess outs are recorded, but it's not like 3 outs in the innings.
Yeah, it's like you get every batter has to like get out. I mean, you only go through like 1 through 9.
Uh-huh.
I like it.
Wow, that's a lot better than my idea.
I like
Just think about it.
Good idea.
At that point, you could. I feel like at that point, maybe you could switch the lineup. You know, put a guy like Josh Bell, who usually bats third. And I'm just using Josh Bell just because he's easiest.
Yeah.
Guy usually bats third or fourth.
Put him
Put him like 7th.
Yeah.
That would make a lot more sense. Wow, that's dope. I like that much better.
Bo just informed me that he was working on something for HOTO. I'm gonna throw that out there. He just
The mad scientist is in the lab.
He just sent something to the Slack and said, "Working on something for HOTO." Exciting news, boys. Exciting news. But so that the extra inning rule isn't the only weird rule that we'll see this year. We talked about it a little bit already. The DH in both the AL and the NL. Dre, we've talked about this several times. You've had heavy feelings about this. How happy are you to actually see it be implemented for this short season?
The DH?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ecstatic. I'm so sick and tired of watching pitchers hit. I'd rather watch paint dry, you know. I'd rather eat paint chips, to be honest. Like, everybody talks about, oh, pitchers hitting so awesome, like Bartolo Colon hit the home run. Like, okay, how many Bartolo Colons in the world hit a home run like that?
How do you not like big sexy hitting a home run?
I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm saying it's literally once in a lifetime.
I just don't want to see him bat.
Once in a lifetime. Everyone takes that one at bats like it's the greatest ever. All right, what about his other 655 at bats or whatever they were?
Okay, I'm okay with. It's like when you're playing golf and you play a completely shitty round on 18 holes and then you hit that one shot that's absolutely amazing and it just saves your day.
Yeah, that happens. You know, that's way more plausible through 18 holes than a pitcher every 5 days stepping in the batter's box 2 or 3 times. They don't care about hitting.
Yeah, and they only.
I remember.
Sorry, you got.
I remember when Daisuke used to come. When Daisuke first came over to the league, and they played. They played an interleague play game, and literally the manager told him to stand in the far back corner of the batter's box and not move. He just stood there like this in the far back corner of the box. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Francisco Liriano is one of the worst hitters I ever seen. He, to his credit, worked on it and was kind of raking there for a little bit.
Yeah.
He was hitting 400, I feel like, at one point. But you know, for every Mad Bum or Noah Syndergaard, there's a guy like Daisuke. And don't even say about Shohei Ohtani. He's different. Like, okay, he's a legitimate two-way player. You're talking about a guy who throws a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and can hit 30 home runs. Like, there's not any guys like that except for maybe 2.
Wait till you see. Okay.
They only hit 2 times a game, and a lot of times, like a pitcher in the NL is being pulled because it's their turn at bat and they get pitch hit for. So, I mean, if anything, I think, like, as a baseball purist, I don't like the extra innings rule, but I like the DH rule. Like, I just think stuff like the double shift, a lot of these things, it extends games, I think, in terms of, like, advancing the sport. It doesn't do it, so I'm happy to see the DH in this setting, hopefully continuing.
And 9 hitters – 9 hitters are a lot better than 8 hitters and a guy who might sacrifice bunt if the hitter before him gets on base.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's 10 times out of 10. If the 8th batter gets on base via walk, double, single, doesn't matter, hit by pitch, who cares? The pitcher is sacrifice bunting him the second. And sometimes you can't, and 50% of the time you can't even get it down. So it's a waste of an out. It's so dumb. I'm so tired of everybody saying pitchers need a bat because that's baseball. It's the dumbest thing in the world. No one gives a damn about these baseball purists anymore. Get the hell away from it. It's not fun. It's not exciting.
Mhm.
You know what's exciting? Having a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, who is an outfielder by trade, batting in the 4-hole, doing nothing but hitting. Why? Because it's good. And then having a guy like Kevin Pillar play his position. Why? Because he's a defensive stud. He's going to bat in the bottom of the lineup. He's going to do better than any freaking pitcher that's going to stand there in a batter's box and just, no one cares. Oh, I'm so hyped for the DH.
Really?
Ran over.
All right. All right. All right, guys. So another thing that I kind of want to talk about, obviously
Brooksy.
they're still what?
I said sorry, Brooksy.
We're good.
They're still working out all of the precautions surrounding COVID-19. Right now, what they have figured out is there's a COVID-19 injured list. There's no minimum or maximum time that you can be on this list. Obviously, if players are diagnosed with COVID, they obviously go on the injured list. They can't participate in games. We don't know what's going to happen. Players are going to be tested every day. Guys, what do you think the possibilities are that this league gets shut down because of COVID?
Greg?
Yeah.
You can go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm like Johnny on the spot. Like, I don't know.
In case
I'm
you
just
guys
asking
don't
the
know,
questions
Greg
out
never
here.
goes first.
I'm just asking the questions out here. I don't know if I need to. I mean, I don't know. Like, I obviously you see these teams coming out. I mean, the Phillies already have 5 or 12 positive cases in the past like week and a half. Charlie Blackmon was diagnosed with coronavirus today. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. And if numbers continue to spike, especially in places like Florida, where they've been open for a while, and other places, like, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the league handles it. And if it gets to a point where they can't do it safely, like, I think, honestly, you have to cancel the league, even though after everything they've been through. Like, I don't see how they can safely, in terms of keeping the players safe, players healthy, and everything surrounding the players, like the staff, the coaches, things like that. Like, how can you realistically hold the league if people are getting sick left and right?
I don't think it's going to shut down. I think one thing that really one thing that's kind of rung true throughout this entire thing is a lot of people are going to get it.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but it's just the numbers game.
Yeah.
The way it is. You can only do so much for yourself, but your neighbor could be irresponsible, and just completely disregard the sanctions and things like that, the wearing the mask and, not practicing good health habits.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately that puts you at risk, and that's what sucks. But I think with things like the daily testing really help. You've seen in the workplace, you've seen things like if you have even the slightest temperature, go home. Like there's a zero tolerance policy for things like this. Mm-hmm. So I think with Major League Baseball, they're going to uphold that zero tolerance policy. I'm curious to see if these guys get it. Do they even come back? Because then you're talking about guys who are asymptomatic. Can they get it? Like the at-risk people, a guy like John Lester, what's up with what does he do? As Carlos Carrasco. And then we say those two guys because those two guys have had cancer in the past. And again, it's a tough conversation to have, but at the same time, it's like, you got to have it. And it's one of the things that are inevitable at this point. So I think the season goes, but in the end, the only real safety you can do is do whatever you can to make sure you protect yourself and look out for yourself and your family. Mm-hmm. So do whatever you can to make sure that you're avoiding the virus. avoid at all costs, because in the end, now that the sport's back, there should be only one thing in their mind, and that's baseball. There ain't any extracurriculars. It's you go home to your family, or you're on the road. You do what you need to do in the clubhouse, and you go home. There should be no external type situations where you see guys, maybe some single guys going out, enjoying a drink when you could do that at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, I think they'll take care of themselves if they get it. I think that the season still goes.
Right.
Yeah, I think we'll go with the society. I think if things start going south quick, then like parameters, if like the second wave comes full-fledged, I think that's what would stop it.
Yeah.
It's if like we go back into hardcore lockdown, not the things that are happening now. Like I think with everything like last week with like college football programs, like seeing what, like for people to see like, oh, okay, there's all these cases. This is what it looks like a month after that, and be able to be like, oh, okay, that's not bad. Like that will be good for people to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the only thing really stopping it is if everything sort of
goes south,
goes back into quarantine.
Sheesh. Okay. And then you guys want to talk about the salaries, the compensation that the players have been getting? I mean, that's been the major topic of conversation over the past 2.5 months, maybe. Players are going to get 30% of their full salaries. They're prorated for the complete
37 to be exact.
37. Didn't I say 37? What did I say?
I thought you said 30.
Oh, 37. I meant to say 37.
It's
But
potato.
Yeah, potato.
Not 40.
They'll get paid for every game that they play. So if they don't play games, they don't get paid for those games. I mean, what do you guys? They've been back and forth about this for 2.5 months, and they end up where they were back in March. I mean, kind of a waste of time, it seems like. What do you guys think?
What took you so long to just agree to this?
Right? Well, I mean, I guess they didn't really agree to it. Like the owners, the league mandated the season pretty much, and didn't backtrace to the agreement they had in March.
Well, that's part of the point. Is like this is the whole point we're making the past how many weeks is like the players are already missing out on their salaries.
Yeah,
they're making 37%. They're getting paid for every game that they play.
Yeah,
and the max they can make is 37% of their max salary.
Yeah,
like they're missing out on money. That was the whole premise of this. I think where they win the biggest is that they still get to file that grievance for negotiating in bad faith. And that's going to cost the owners some money. I heard it could be north of $5 billion when the players file that grievance.
Well, that's why they gave up so much stuff in negotiations from what I've read. And I've also read that Scott Boras has kind of been working behind the scenes to make sure that they keep that grievance so that they're able to file that grievance when the time comes. But I've also heard that the league is going to counter grievance them.
I just want to say I will never trash Scott Boras again. I trashed him last year. I'm not going to do it again. If he's working behind the scenes for the players, it's good, man, because the owners suck. We've seen that more than anything.
Yes. Yeah.
Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, get ready for a counter grievance.
Yeah. Owners came out, and I mean, from what I've read, they already plan on filing a counter grievance if Players Association file a grievance. So that's going to be interesting. And all of this is leading up to a CBA contract negotiation next summer. So seems like it's going to be I think it's going to end up even dirtier than it was this summer with the contract, with the CBA next year. Like it's going to be even worse than it was this year after everything that happened over the past 3 months.
Well, it won't be during a pandemic.
Yeah.
So the focus on it, both from the public and like the different levels, like this is a time, I mean, maybe it's like a good thing that this opened labor disputes eyes to a lot of players that
Yeah.
a lot of times when it's in the off season, they're not really tuned into it.
Mhm.
So that could be a little bit different. But I think just in terms of the overall optics of it, I mean, at least everybody's now like, oh, damn, like December 2021 is going to get nasty. But I think just the fact that it won't be during a pandemic, I think at least the public perception will be a little bit chiller.
Well, I'm going to play the positive guy, as I always do. This pandemic, these whole negotiation thing turned out nasty. So do you think they want to try and avoid the nastiness? I understand the grievance part of it, but they want to avoid the nastiness because they already lost 2/3 of a season this year. Do you think if they start a season next year, don't agree on an agreement, and just completely go into a lockout,
Mm-hmm.
you know how bad that would look for the league? That would be bad. I would like to assume that that needs to be avoided at all costs.
I feel like the players aren't gonna take. Like I feel like the players kind of just said screw it. Like this past week or so, I feel like the players just said screw it. Like let's get this deal done. Let's play baseball. Like I don't think they're gonna bend down as easily next summer when they have these CBA negotiations. Like I don't think they're gonna give in as easily. And I think that's why I think it's gonna get a little dirtier than what it was this year. I don't want to see that. But I think that's what's going to happen.
I hope not, but who knows?
Yeah.
These owners are greedy as hell, so
All right.
I'm just being optimistic, I guess.
There you go. So last thing, guys, I want to talk about. So with the implementation of the 60-game season, odds came out either last night, today. The Yankees and the Dodgers are tied as the 7-2 favorites. Somehow the Houston Astros are in third at 11-1 odds. Does the outcome change? Do we all think that it's either the Yankees or the Dodgers winning the World Series, or are the chances even greater of someone coming out of the pool, someone coming out of the rest of the league to win the World Series?
I still feel like it's about the same. I mean, they're head and shoulders above the rest of the competition in my eyes. And then, like, the biggest thing is the playoffs remain the same.
Yeah.
So, like, in their cases, they just need to not be a wild card and have to play one of those games. And then you're having to play, like, 7-game series. And in those, I feel like they hold the big advantage.
I think there's only one team that stands above the rest, and it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know what the Yankees did is awesome, but with Garrett Cole is what I mean by that. But I think the Dodgers really benefit from this the most. I mean, we talked about how great their lineup was top to bottom, and then the talk was before the pandemic was, what do they do with the outfield? Then they tried to trade Jock Peterson, and people forgot that deal fell through, and they never traded him.
Yeah.
Well, now you don't even got a pitcher batting. You got Jock Peterson there as your DH. So, like, you're talking about a team that top to bottom can smack 20 home runs a night. And I know the Yankees can do that too, but the Yankees have to go through the gauntlet that is the NL East, whereas the Dodgers, I think, are the best team in both the East and the West. So, I know they got the Astros to deal with, but people forget the Astros cheated. And they're not cheating again. So, and they don't have Garrett Cole, so there's that. I know we talked about the Angels getting better, but they're still nowhere near as good as the Dodgers. And we haven't talked about the Athletics. My point is again, AL East is always a shit show in terms of them beating up on each other, and there's always one team that sucks. The NL East is dominant.
Yep.
There's one of the 4 teams could come out of that division, and none of them are the Marlins. It's the Dodgers to lose. It's the Dodgers to win. It's the Dodgers to lose. That's where I'm going to place my money.
All right, guys. Well, baseball is back. Baseball is fucking back. Hopefully we'll see you next week with more news. That's all the time we got for tonight. Wanted to catch you early as the season gets started soon. But we'll come back here. We'll break down the rosters. We'll break down the teams again. We'll break down all the news. But until then, see you next week.
No, it was not proper coronavirus.
That was a great end.